Resolution 19. Mr. Mark van Baal, I believe you're here to propose the resolution. We would welcome you to the microphone.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Mr. Van Beurden. Good afternoon, board. Good to see you again. Fellow shareholders, good morning. Good afternoon, I have to say. My name is Mark van Baal of Follow This. We are a movement of 1,600 green shareholders in Shell. We think you can change the world. You can change the world by putting Shell's brains and billions behind renewable energy. Today, we talk about a lot of issues: dividends, earthquake, climate change, the oil price, your reappointments, your enumerations. We're glad we are now at the point that we can talk about what is really at stake today. And it is end of the fossil era and what you are going to do about it. Production costs of oil and gas have tripled in the last decade. That's logical. Fossil fuels are getting more and more expensive to get out of the ground. Meanwhile, the alternative, what the world is asking for, is getting cheaper and cheaper, exponentially cheaper. So these two simple facts for us lead to one simple conclusion. Shell has to become a renewable energy company. Simply, not from today to tomorrow, but simply by investing the profits from fossil fuels in renewable energy. As we have worded in resolution number 19. We like to thank Michiel Brandjes and his team for their help in submitting this folder. It was a bulky folder full of signatures. Thank you for your help. Mr. Van Beurden, board. In the past year, we've applauded a lot of your decisions in which you acknowledge the end of the fossil era. You've ended your exploration in the Arctic. You have plans to build wind farms in the North Sea. In your strategy, in the annual report, we finally see you writing about large-scale investments in solar and wind. Thank you for that. Then, you plan to establish a renewable energy division. I have to add, rumor has it, but we are convinced you will do that. And you have officially embraced the 2-degree scenario. And again, last but not least, you plan to sell upstream assets. Again, rumor has it, and this may be for the wrong reasons, but we think it's wise to sell assets before they get stranded. Fellow shareholders, according to Carbon Tracker, that's a British think tank of British bankers, Shell runs a risk of losing $77 billion in stranded assets in the next 10 years. So please don't add anything to that. You've made these good decisions, Mr. Van Beurden. In resolution 19, we ask you to make one more decision. Express the ambition to become a renewable energy company by investing the profits from fossil fuels in renewable energy. Let me emphasize, after paying dividends. We are here with around 50 green shareholders and we want to make it out alive. We are convinced that investing in renewables is the only way to sustain your dividend policy for the longer run. So we're not asking you to stop producing oil and gas today. We ask you to decide to stop investing in exploration for more oil and gas and to stop investing in the acquisition for more oil and gas. The cash flow that's made available in exploring, you can use for exploring new business models. New business models with renewable energy. The technology is out there. The technology is getting cheaper and cheaper. The challenge is in finding new business models. So the only decision we ask you today, we ask in resolution 19, is to start investing in renewables. Everything else is up to you. Everything else is to your board, your future energy team, your scenarios team, and 90,000 intelligent people. You are a good company, but we think you can be a great company. Imagine the diversification in the renewable business models you can achieve, you can create. Today, you've tied your hands to only one thing, and that's the oil price. You can instead spread your risks over a number of new business models: solar in the Sahara, offshore wind in the North Sea, electric mobility, large-scale energy storage, typical things Shell could do. The possibilities are endless. Further, imagine what the ambition to become a renewable energy company will mean for your shareholders. For example, the Dutch pension funds. They all have expressed the ambition to make their portfolio sustainable. When Shell expresses the same ambition, these shareholders can finally explain to their pensioners why shares in Shell fit seamlessly in their ambition to make their portfolio sustainable and future-proof. Finally, please imagine what this will mean for the brand value of Shell. If you have a company with a clear zero emissions goal. Fossil fuels are a commodity. We are convinced that setting a zero emission goal will distinguish Shell from its competitors, because customers will know that the profits from Shell, even if they buy fossil fuels from you, they know the profits will go to renewable energy. This will be a tremendous meaning for your brand. Mr. Van Beurden, I want you to advise too. Pump all you can. I think this is an unfairly vilified quote. Pump all you can, but do not add any more potential stranded assets. I again repeat, 77 billion. Half of your company is at risk. Please explore new sustainable business models instead of more oil and gas. To illustrate, we do not ask something unrealistic. Let me finish with two more quotes. First, of Mr. Van Beurden. He made this quote when he started his tenure as a CEO. And you said, I've repeated it more times, an organization that has so many qualities, so much expertise, so much capital, has to be able to reinvent itself. We fully agree. The second quote is a recent quote of Marjan van Loon, president of Shell in the Netherlands, in the Dutch newspaper NRC Handelsblad last Saturday. The question was about becoming a renewable energy company in 2030 or 2035. And her answer was, that dot on the horizon is in principle the same for everybody. We share the same goal. So, today can be a historic day. The day shareholders support Shell to change course. They can support you by voting for Resolution 19. Dear Mr. Van Beurden, dear members of the board, we really believe you can change the world. You can put Shell's brains and billions into renewables. And we want to prevent your shares, our shares, from becoming worthless in the next decades. You have our support in being part of the solution, in taking the lead. We want to be proud of Shell. You can change the world. And our question is, what are you waiting for?
Mr. Van Baal, thank you very much. That was a very clear and very moving presentation. The way I'd suggest we handle it now, I ask Ben to respond to your resolution and also incorporate anything in from earlier questions. Then we'll open the floor again for anyone else who has additional follow-up questions, if that would be okay. Ben?
Thanks, Chairman. Thanks very much, Meneer Van Baal. Indeed, I think you have put this very, very clearly, very well. And let me also thank all the other members of Follow This for the way they have responded in sending me individual emails. I get a lot of spam, as you can imagine. I get a lot of emails from people who are unhappy with the course that the company takes. But quite often they are automated emails just intended to make my life miserable every day. The emails that you have sent and that your followers have sent have always been personalized emails, very clearly indeed making the points as you have done in their own words. And I would like to acknowledge that because I read them all, didn't respond to all of them, but I've read them all and I take note of them. Now, as I said earlier in my speech, we advised against the resolution for the reasons that we mentioned. We don't think tying our heads down to a renewables-only mandate is the right thing to do for our shareholders, and we do think that the transition that we are in is going to be slightly longer term, so that getting ahead of it in the way that you suggest would actually be value destructive, probably even terminal for the company. But that doesn't mean that I disagree with the sentiment that you've expressed and that many of your followers express as well. I think we are very, very clear that indeed we are in that transition, that we need to be a successful company. And let me just be very clear again what it is that we believe in. So we believe absolutely that climate change is real. Not all companies do that, but we do believe climate change is real. We also believe it requires very urgent action.
20 years already.
Yeah. If you will allow me now to speak for a little while, that would be useful. We also believe, by the way, that we can adopt a set of measures that will allow the world to stay within the 2 degrees C warming since industrial activity started. And we also believe that Shell can thrive in that world by adapting our business models. And we believe that adapting means also, indeed, lower carbon business models, getting into renewables, doing the sort of things that we are doing, and that I will say a little bit more about. So I do not think that fundamentally, when it comes to the heart of the matter, we have any difference. There's a few other things that we believe in, and I hope we don't have a difference there either. So, first of all, we believe that a very, very large part of the world has no easy access to energy, and they need to be given access to affordable energy. And that's quite often the fastest, if not the only way, for very, very large parts of society to be risen out of poverty, to provide gender equality, to give people a reasonable life expectancy, not just a smartphone, life expectancy, and we believe that is a very important priority as well. And we believe that the population of this world will grow significantly, and we believe also that most of the growth, the billions of people that are going to be added in those parts of the world where the energy consumption per person is up to 10 times lower than it is here in the Netherlands or in the United States. And these people have right for energy as well. And we also believe, by the way, that tremendous amount of progress can be made in the Western world to reduce the energy intensity of our societies. So that's what we also believe in. You didn't talk about that, but we believe in it. But I also hope we don't disagree on these matters. They are equally important in my mind as climate change. And they go back to fundamental human rights, a healthy planet, but also a respectable life. Now, we do have a few differences, though, and I would like to highlight them as well. So let me say what we also believe in. And not because we like to believe it, but because we make it our business to really understanding this. We do believe, based on a lot of analysis that we do, and by the way, others do as well, that even if we are going to stick to a 2 degrees C scenario, which I really hope for and really work on, that the amount of investments we are going to need in oil and gas is still going to be significant. And why is that? If the entire oil and gas industry would stop investing in oil and gas, the rate at which supply would drop off like a rock will be much faster than the rate with which society needs to drop demand to stay within 2 degrees C. So in other words, which I hope collectively we find a way to stay within the 2 degrees C, we will still need significant investments in oil and gas. I'm not talking about a few millions, I'm talking about up to $1 trillion every year that industry has to invest just to stay within 2 degrees in oil and gas. We also believe that if we can go to net zero emissions, which is a long-term goal for society, is something that we support, that it will require absolutely unprecedented policy change. Absolutely unprecedented. But we believe that it's achievable, but it can only be achieved if industry, government, civil society, society in general, really work together in a way that probably has never been done before. That's the nature of the challenge that we believe in. And we also believe that really as a company, we can only act in a rational, economic, rational way. That's also a fundamental belief that ultimately is what our shareholders expect us to do, to act economically rational. Now, my guess is that many NGOs, maybe yourself also, Mr. Van Baal, disagree with that. Because what I also hear, many people believe that the world can actually do without oil and gas. Why do we need oil and gas in the first place? We can do without oil and gas and still maintain our living standards. Now, that's simply not the case. Yes, renewables can supply an awful lot in terms of electricity, but bear in mind, electricity is only 20% of the energy that we consume. A lot of the other energy, we do not see how it is being consumed. Part of it is in cars, of course, we can see that, but a lot of it also by industry. A lot of it being sort of consumed by putting food on the table, by putting a mobile phone in your pocket, by doing all sorts of other things. 80% is fossil fuels, and quite often irreplaceable by renewables. I think a lot of people tell me, or like to tell me, that it's actually pretty easy. And it's not. It is not easy. As I said, it will take an unprecedented amount of effort to bring about a net zero emission future. It has been referred to before, but I really, really recommend you take home this booklet here that we produced, which shows what we think it will take to get to net zero emissions. It doesn't read like a spy novel, but it does actually read quite easily. And if you read it, you will take away, hopefully, the impression that this is not a trivial thing. This is not something that we just do, we just decide, and it will happen automatically. I think you also believe, and that's why you are here, that this is all our problem. That this has been a problem of suppliers. That suppliers of oil and gas actually are the culprits here. And that is therefore also for us to solve. Well, I'd like to say that consumers have a role to play in this as well. You know, it may be very enticing and interesting to say, leave all these hydrocarbons in the ground. And we see it quite often, protests, leave it in the ground. It's all going to be stranded anyway. But, you know, it's not for us then to decide how that will play out. It is not for industry to decide who then should consume less. It's not for industry to decide who are going to turn away at a filling station who want to fill up my car. It's not for industry to decide which planes we will not fuel because the people on it are only going on a holiday, so they can also not take the CO2. It's not for us to ration gas supply to your home because we believe it's actually better for the planet not to do so. So there are many things that are outside our control. We don't even turn away Greenpeace when they turn up at our terminals to fill up their ship with fossil fuels. We also serve these people. It is not our obligation to do this. And I think that is something that is very, very important to note as well. Now, what does it mean then for a company like Shell? And again, this is probably where we have a lot of common ground as well. When you tell us that we should be doing more and that we can do more, I would say absolutely yes, we can do more and we will do more. If you don't believe in it, we'll see what we will be doing over the next months and quarters, years, and come back here every year and we will have a dialogue about it. Can we punch above our weight? Because, you know, we say we are only 2% of oil and gas production. Only 0.2% of the carbon in oil and gas sits in our portfolio. Yeah. But can we punch above our weight? Because we are Shell, can we do more? Yes, absolutely, and we will. Will it make a difference? I hope so. I hope it will make a difference. Because we also want to be a company that does good for society. We are also 94,000 people who actually want to make a difference. As we have made a difference for the last 90 years in helping societies grow up and have a much more higher level of prosperity because of the energy that has been provided. So we will play our role, Mr. Van Baal, in the energy transition, and we will do it as best as we can. We do it as fast as we can. We will be a leader in that area. We will also actively advocate for policy measures that will allow us to do the right thing in an economically rational way. So asking for certain policies, pricing on carbon, etc., that will allow me and the company to do things that align your goal with the goal of all other shareholders, which is to continue to pay the dividend. And we do that because we want to preserve the company. Not because we are very proud of it, that's also the case, but we want to preserve the company as a force for good. We want to preserve also the dividend that we pay to shareholders. And, many of the shareholders are represented in this room, but all of you also receive dividends through pension funds. We are the largest dividend payer in the Netherlands. We are probably going to be the largest dividend payer in the world. That is something that needs to be preserved as well. I'm not going to say that a renewables-only mandate in the end cannot work, but I would like to give you one other small statistic. If you take all top 10 solar companies in the world, take all of them, and they are a very significant part of the total solar industry, they together probably represent $14 billion of capital employed. Shell is over 200. They invest roughly, last year, $5 billion. That's the top 10 solar companies, $5 billion in solar. That compares to $30 billion that we invest. So there's a scale issue here as well. These companies, over their entire life, have returned 0 dividends to their shareholders. They make 0 profit collectively. I don't want to badmouth these companies, but it is to show how difficult it is to make a transition. In addition to the transition I talked about with the $55 trillion of investment that the world somehow has to change. We cannot do this overnight. And if we wanted to, I would probably not be allowed to by all the other shareholders because it would mean the end of the company. Now, I don't want to be negative about this because I go back to my very first point, which is that I believe that our objectives are pretty much aligned. The only thing that we probably disagree on is the path and the speed at which it actually can happen. I believe in the 2 degrees, but I do not think I can bring it about on my own. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Mr. Van Baal, a comment now that I'd like to take the other questions and I'll give you the last word. Okay, other questions first? Okay.
I just want to make one remark about the speed of the transition. We really don't want you to change overnight, but we want you just to take the decision today that in 20 years from now you are a renewable energy company. We just don't want you to invest in exploring new sources like in the Arctic for 2035, because we think that will be stranded. And one more remark, I think you underestimate 2 things. That's the speed, the exponential speed of renewables in volume going up and in costs going down while your costs are going up. That's one thing. And you underestimate your own role in it. I think you can play a tremendous role. And we really want to encourage you to take that role.
Thank you very much. Microphone number 1.